The Oak and the Wind, written by Matthew Sorensen and illustrated by Mariam. There once was a very old village by the sea where great sailing ships were built. Near this little old village, a hill sloped upward to a grand cliff where people of the village would sometimes go to look at the sea. Near the top of the cliff, there was a very young oak tree. This tree was just a sapling, small and weak, but he was protected by a great big boulder. The young tree grew in the shadow of the boulder and always seemed to be happy. He made friends with the grass and the flowers and knew them all by name. One day, as the young oak stretched to try and see over the great boulder, he met a new friend. The oak knew everyone, or so he thought. And so he said,
"Hello, I'm the oak tree. What is your name?"
"I am the wind,"
came the breathy response of his new friend. The little tree was excited at the discovery of a new friend, and as time passed, he grew taller and learned new things about the wind. She was not always there, like the grass and the flowers and the great old boulder. She came and went as she pleased. Sometimes she was cold, and sometimes she was warm. Sometimes she traveled slowly in a calm, smooth motion. And sometimes she rushed through without a warning or care. But she always brought gifts in her arms. She carried the smell of the ocean, the scents of the village, and occasionally the faint, exotic aroma of distant lands. On her back flew the birds and the bugs, and with them their songs and sounds. Before her, she pushed the mists of the sea, the leaves of trees, and the petals of flowers. Behind her, she pulled the rain and sometimes the storm. The oak did not always like the gifts the wind brought. The rain was good to drink, but the storms were sometimes hard. The gusts pushed and bent his frame. The snow froze him, and he lost all his leaves. The winter storms were always the hardest. The oak continued to grow very large, and the wind brought many gifts and birds to live in his branches. Their songs were accompanied by the laughter of the children from the village. All during the summer, there were bright, warm days filled with happiness. The oak loved the wind more and more every day and talked with her often during these times, but she always had to move on. As time went on, the tree grew old and thick. His gnarled trunk was strong. Although bent in places by the years of storms, his branches stretched out and cast lots of shade beneath him. He was a great strong tree, but he was also very old. And one day, the wind was angry and brought a powerful, terrible storm. He stood strong against the storm, but it pulled his roots and bent his trunk, and he fell to the ground. The next morning, the oak lay on the ground. He was sad and confused. Why would the wind do this to him? What good would he ever be anymore? He was not a tree anymore. He did not know how to be anything else. Then an old shipwright came up the hill. The old man knew this tree well. He grew up playing games in his shade. He brought his young bride to picnic here many years ago, and now his children's children played here. He brought men and horses to take the tree to his shop in the village. The oak was surprised. The men were hurting him and shaping him with tools. They cut his branches and ripped his bark. He was being measured and shaved and shaped. It was a painful process, but the tree was curious to know what would happen. One day, the oak was loaded onto a cart by the old shipwright. "Hermes, you will make a magnificent prow for this ship." The oak wondered why the old man was calling him Hermes. He was taken to a place where great sailing ships were built. Many men lifted him into the air and worked to connect his back to the bow. After some time, the ship was launched into the sea, and the oak could see himself in the reflection on the water. He was the shape of a man now, and appeared to be wearing a flowing robe and a warrior's helm with wings on the sides. The oak traveled long distances to faraway lands and saw many things. He was not a tree anymore, but it no longer mattered. He was a traveler. He was carried onward by the currents of the sea and new winds that he never could have met if he were still rooted on the hill above the village. The north wind showed him the way to cold, icy lands where people had golden hair, loved the sea, and lived in beautiful castles of ice. He went to a grand city where the buildings had funny shapes and were painted every color imaginable. He saw big white whales with long, sharp horns growing from their foreheads, and walruses with long teeth and mustaches. The west wind took him across the ocean to where the water was warm, and the people were always happy. He saw jungles full of colorful birds and monkeys. He found a baby whale whose mother was even bigger than the ship that the oak now rode. There were thousands of islands scattered across the warm tropical waters and full of people that were always excited to see him. The south wind showed him a land too big to sail around where the sun was so hot that almost nothing lived there. She showed him a place where great and ferocious animals lived in grasslands and jungles. The people here had bright, easy smiles and dark, beautiful skin that he had never seen before. Some of the people even rode on the backs of the great beasts with the long, sharp teeth. The oak was happy with his new life. The wind had broken him, but thanks to the strong, practiced hand of his friend, the old shipwright, he was now free to sail anywhere he wanted and help people all over the world. About the author. Matthew Sorensen is an Arizona native who enjoys writing about the things that inspire him most, family and the natural world. He was born and raised along the banks of Colorado River in the desert southwest and currently lives in Phoenix area with his wife and children. He is an outdoors enthusiast who loves spending time in nature, camping, hiking, and swimming. Matthew is an incredible human being, and when he was at the lowest in his life, he thought everything was over. And looking back, he realized that that was just shaping him, that was just bending him, that was just paving the way for him to have a more joyful life than he ever imagined. So when the rough winds come and we feel like we're about to bend or break, and we do, just remember, we don't know what we are capable of yet. And we don't know what's in store for us. So keep going, keep pushing, and wait to unlock your true potential. I hope you guys enjoyed this. If you'd like to see more readings, comment below and let me know if this is something you want to see more of. And if you know of somebody who wants their book read, you can email me in my About section. Have a great and blessed day.